In this industry, people quit all the time. It's rarely about money. Undoubtedly, when you were hired, you were sold a bill of goods. This is the way it's going to be. This is the way you operate. We're here for you. No, they're not. That's evident when you can't get a hold of them for 6 and 7 hours at a time because you just keep getting rerouted into the company voicemail box. Basically, the voicemail dump. That's happened. My last company was notorious for that. 6, 7, 8 hours and you wouldn't hear nothing despite messages and calls. That wears on a person. When you're getting ignored like that, you're not appreciated. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a prima donna and be appreciated where you work, but when you're just blatantly ignored, that grates on a person, and eventually, it doesn't matter how much pay they're going to throw at you. Enough's enough, and you quit. Another reason people quit is management. It's true. There's an old saying that says people don't quit companies, they quit management, and that's 100% accurate, and it's never been truer anywhere than in the trucking community. It just, when you need help and you can't get it, or when there's so much double talk, or where there's just flat out abuse. I had an old dispatcher years ago, a couple companies back. You didn't dare call him at 5:30 if you needed something, or call him after hours, or if he was on call. The dude was so drunk all the time that you were just screwed. They would not get rid of him. Don't ask me why. But there was nothing you can do with him. If you need, when management sits there and just ignores you for hours on end, when you genuinely need help, a lot of people think that, especially a lot of management, is like, it's just a bunch of truck drivers whining. I was like, a lot of it is. But if you sit there and read between the lines, you'll see a common thread from argument to argument to argument across multiple different peoples that's really going to pinpoint the program, or not the program, the problem. And you can't get them to look any further than that. They won't even look that far. You're a blip on the computer screen. This is by far the worst thing when it comes a blip on the computer screen. Like I said, you are completely impersonal to most of these people. We used to laugh at 4:59 at my last company. It would be a mass exodus out the door. It'd be a ghost town by 5:02. And I'm surprised there wasn't a pile up at the gate trying to get out every day. They didn't want to be here. And they didn't care. If something left unfinished, as far as they were concerned, it'd be there in the morning. They failed to recognize that on the other end of that computer and on the other end of that phone, there's human beings out there. And there's human beings with real problems. And when you can't get your problems fixed because people treat this as a 9-to-5 job, and the minute you're gone, they don't give a crap. As a dispatcher, you have to take this just a little bit personal. These are real people out here, and that's kind of one of those things that people are ignoring, especially when you get into the bigger companies. They only give a crap about what's on the computer screen between 8 and 4:30, and after that, you'll be here in the morning. They literally, most of them just don't care. And it seems like the bigger the company, the worse it gets. And that leads me to another point. Now, in an era where most people are college graduates, you know, if you ever sit around a table at a truck stop, you'll hear people bitch, moan, and complain about, you know, trucking companies aren't run by truck drivers. No, they're not. Not anymore. Some of the smaller ones still are, and there's a few of former drivers that work in the office, but for the most part, they're not. And that's a good thing, and that's a bad thing. Now, a lot of these trucking companies are, well, I'd say probably 85 to 90% of these are not run by truck drivers. They've gone corporate. They're in business to make money, which we all are. I don't have a problem with that. But they hire people for a specific job, and these people, most of them have never held a CDL. Most of them have never even seen the inside of a truck. So it becomes very impersonal. And that attitude transmits out to the driver. The driver's not being taken care of, and a lot of times they're not. You know, they seem to think that they're just gonna force dispatch you and send you down the road. It happens to all of us. And when that tends to happen, that's another reason people quit. You're just not given any options. You're being told, boom, this is what's happening. You're going to do this. There's no question about this. Oh, you don't know? You don't have the hours? Well, you better figure out how to make it work. Oh, you can't do it? Well, this isn't a forced dispatch company, so we'll just give the load to somebody else and we'll get you something real quick. And a day and a half, 2 days later, they finally get you something. This happens a lot. I have worked for companies where this has happened. I sat in Ottawa, Illinois for 2.5 days waiting on a load to Chicago. I had no choice. And this is why drivers quit. A lot of times drivers feel like they're being punished because they are being punished because you made the person on the other end of the phone work. And when things don't go that way, they tend to take it out on the driver. They say, oh, well, no, I just did what had to be done. No, there was a little bit of spite there. When you have been in this business long enough, like I have, you understand the difference between things just happen and this was spiteful. And if you deal with the same driver manager long enough, you'll eventually figure it out. Now, a lot of this does come back on the driver. If you're an absolute prick to the person, yeah, you're not going to get a whole lot of help from them. You'll get the bare minimum. But if they're just constantly unhelpful and unhappy, it might be time to get a new driver's manager. And if you can't get along with them, or that it's just getting worse and worse and worse, that's another reason that people quit. It just, you either get run out or there's just nowhere left to go. As I sit here and do this video, I'm starting to realize that there's just a lot of different reasons that people quit their jobs. And you can't really put it in a category. But there is one thing that causes a lot of people to quit, and it has to do with stress. And it's the stress from complete inconsistency. And I'll explain that. There's a lot of stress out here that's caused by bad management. And when I say bad management, it's the inconsistency of what you're doing. Hurry up and wait. Hurry up and wait. When that becomes the norm rather than the exception, people quit. When you're waiting and you know you can't sleep, or you've been up all night and they keep screwing with you or won't give you answers, and you're up all day, and then they give you a load and want you to drive all night, you know, that wears on a man, wears on a woman, wears on anybody. Inconsistency. You can't operate that way. As people, we weren't meant to operate that way. And when bad management is continually jerking you around with things of this nature, eventually there's a little bit of pushback. And pushing back on something like this is reasonable. The problem is that the people in the office, they're not out here. They think, well, you should have taken a nap, and you should have been like, well, you should have had me planned so I could schedule my day around you. And that's what a lot of people in the offices don't realize, is that a lot of times we have to schedule our days around what they're doing, because they don't share with the rest of the class. So when that happens, that causes a lot of people to quit. You know, I work for companies like that. I worked for 2 companies like that, and it just wears you out. It wrecks you, and after a while you just throw your hands up and you're like, we're done. You know, back in the old paper log days before computers, I worked for an outlaw company like that, and it was quite literally awful. Keep you up all day, not telling you what to do, and then suddenly they want you to drive all night and all the next day because people in the office weren't doing their job. And or they made promises that they knew they legally couldn't keep. And a lot of that still happens today. Thankfully, I'm at a good company where that doesn't. But communication is the key. And when your employer is not communicating with you, and they're not sharing with the class, or they're not even giving you a heads up saying, you know what, we're not going to have anything for 3 or 4 hours. Can you get a nap? Try to do something. Chances are, I'm looking at getting something later tonight. You know, and if they don't share with the class, and by 5:30 or 6 o'clock you haven't done nothing, and you finally lay down, and then somebody calls you at 6:30 going, oh, we got this load, you got to go. You know, and then you find out the load was loaded 6 hours prior. That kind of crap will wear on you. And that right there is why a lot of people quit. I had to come back here into the sleeper to get out of the glare of the afternoon sun. I'm here in Jackson, Mississippi, delivering in the morning. So I know there's so much that I could be covering here. I'm just covering the basics, and I'm trying not to make this video too long or mundane. But these are the main reasons that I found out why people quit. Yeah, I'm not talking about people getting fired, and I'm not talking about drivers getting mad and quitting for, you know, stupid, selfish reasons or stuff like that. I'm talking about legitimate things. I'm trying to, at least. And when you stress a driver out enough, they leave, they go away. And that's one of the reasons that the turnover is so high. And that's one of the reasons why there's a problem with retention. As I'm going to cover in another video I'm planning later on, I'll just tell you some of the numbers I found out when I was in training. I worked in the training department in my last company, and the numbers were shocking. At the time, they had a 650 truck fleet. They processed over 40,000 applications in a year. They made over 40,000 contacts. And of that 40,000 contacts, they managed to hire 2,200 people. And those were the ones the insurance gave them the okay on. And of the 2,200 people for a 600 truck fleet, or 650 truck fleet, that's awful. That's absolutely horrendous. If you have a turnover that high, there's a problem. And it's not the drivers. You know, if you're that strict on hiring drivers, now sure, there's going to be a few nutballs that get thrown in there. There always are. But if you're having that high of a turnover and that much of a problem keeping drivers, it's not the drivers. It's management, it's staff, it's your approach to the business. And if you can find a healthy balance and a company that's gonna work with you and, you know, take a proactive approach with their drivers, that's gold, man. So I hope this video has been informative. I had a lot more I really wanted to cover, but you know, you start venturing down the rabbit hole, and you know, you start talking about why people get fired and retention problems, and you know, I could do 2 or 3 hours on that, and not here. So I appreciate it. You know, like I said, pay's not even in the top 5. You know, unless they start bouncing paychecks, it's not even in the top 5 why people quit. They quit management, and they quit management for a whole myriad of reasons, and I've explained a few of them. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was informative. I tried to make it interesting, and there's a part of me that thinks I failed. So I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video. Thanks.